they're over at the White House, and a short list of 3 people, we're being told, remain as potential Supreme Court picks by President Trump. He's set to announce the final decision at 9 p.m. Eastern this upcoming Monday night. And Democrats, of course, are doing everything in their power to whip up their base, no matter who the choice is. The resistance, it must continue. Joining us now with the latest is Fox News correspondent Kristen Fisher. Kristen, good evening.
Hey, Pete. Well, President Trump told reporters on board Air Force One tonight that his shortlist has shrunk to 4, and he thinks that he's narrowed it down to 2 or 3 finalists. Now, our sources tell Fox News that those finalists are 3 appellate court judges, all of whom are widely regarded to be constitutional conservatives. They are Brett Kavanaugh from the D.C. Circuit, the 6th Circuit's Raymond Kethledge, and Amy Coney Barrett of the 7th Circuit. Now, Kavanaugh is kind of the steady Washington insider, powerful court that served as a stepping stone for 3 current Supreme Court justices, as well as the late Antonin Scalia. He clerked for retiring Justice Kennedy, and he has deep ties to his former boss, President George W. Bush. Another former Kennedy clerk, Judge Raymond Kethledge. The 51-year-old is known for being a bit of a loner. He's less high profile and has less of a judicial record than Kavanaugh, but he's also a lot less controversial, which could help him get confirmed, help him get through the Senate. And then there's Amy Coney Barrett, the only female finalist, we believe. She has 7 children. She clerked for the late Justice Antonin Scalia, and she's a devout Catholic, but her writings on overturning judicial precedent have raised a red flag with a very critical Republican Senator, Susan Collins, who fears that she might overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, President Trump says he hopes to make his decision by Sunday. Then on Monday, a big primetime announcement at the White House, something he made official during that rally tonight in Montana. Listen here.
And if you turn in Monday at 9 o'clock, I think you're going to be extremely happy with this election, right? I want to thank Justice Kennedy for his lifetime of truly distinguished service. And he had confidence in me. He left because he said, you're going to pick somebody great.
But Democrats say no one on the president's shortlist is great. They're now putting the pressure on 2 key Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. One liberal group is planning to spend millions of dollars on advertising and activism in the senators' home states, Alaska and Maine, which is the exact same strategy that they used to help defeat the Republican effort to repeal Obamacare last year. But of course, Pete, this is going to be a much more difficult fight for the Democrats to win.
You're right.
Pete?
Some precedent there. Kristen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. As we mentioned, Democrats, they're throwing the kitchen sink at President Trump's Supreme Court candidates. None more than at Judge Amy Coney Barrett. You can't put it any other way. An incredibly qualified U.S. Court of Appeals judge who is a devout Catholic and a mother of 7 children. The left's hypocrisy on her is so thick you could choke on it. Joining us now with reaction is Carrie Severino, Policy Director of the Conservative Judicial Crisis Network and a former clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas, along with attorney and radio talk show host Leo Terrell. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Carrie, let me start with you. So the criticism of Amy Barrett, and knowing how accomplished she is that, well, she may be just too devout of a Catholic, yet the left has, usually sees a qualified female candidate, and especially someone who's already been confirmed with 55 votes, as someone who would be, yet again, breaking the glass ceiling. Why the resistance to Amy?
Well, this is really ridiculous because under our Constitution, there is no religious test for office, and that's what they're trying to do here. What I think is happening is you're seeing people like Senator Feinstein who are very threatened by an accomplished, articulate, but conservative woman, because that really puts the lie to their identity politics. She does not toe their line and their feminist idea of what a woman should be, and she understands how to defend her positions. So I think that's someone they feel very threatened by, and that's why we saw the hard attack on her during her confirmation hearings with that famous, but so strange line, the dogma lives loudly within her.
Sure.
That'll go down in history, and now it might go down in history as the beginning of a Supreme Court justice's career.
Well, yet she was still confirmed with 55 votes. Leo, before I go to you, we're going to let Amy Coney Barrett speak for herself. She spoke to a group in Jacksonville, Florida. This is what she said about interpreting the Constitution. Listen.
To say, I want to appoint someone who's pro-life, or I want to appoint someone whose primary focus is protecting minority rights, though the candidates are talking to their bases and talking to the electorate and saying, signal, I'm going to put people on the court who share your policy preferences. As I was saying before, I think that's not the right qualification for a justice. I mean, we shouldn't be putting people on the court that share our policy preferences. We should be putting people on the court who want to apply the Constitution.
Applying the Constitution, Leo, what do you take issue with there?
We shouldn't put people on there who adopt or believe in the same policy. Let me tell you, have you read about this woman? I've read her before I came on your show. This woman does not believe in stare decisis. Carrie, you know what that means? She doesn't believe in established law. She is telling people that she has no problem overturning.
No, very bad.
No, excuse me, with all due respect, I don't think Roe versus Wade is a bad law. It's been on the books for about 45 years. But this, if you want to be honest, she is talking about overturning established law. That scares me as a lawyer. And Carrie, you didn't mention that. She also said in a speech that lawyers should have a higher calling to God. God has nothing to do with the law. This woman is scary. Very scary, because she's a threat to overturning established law. Carrie and Pete, I hope you talk about those items, because that's dangerous.
Well, you read, as I'm sure many you did, like many Americans, looking at the Declaration of Independence yesterday. Of course, our founders believed in God, believed in nature's God. And there's been, you would acknowledge, Leo, there have been plenty of laws in this country that were on the books for 45 years that should have never been on the books in the first place. So take Roe v. Wade as an example, Carrie. You know, there are a lot of folks who look at jurisprudence on the left and the right and say that the right found there in Roe v. Wade, they really had to bend over backwards to find that right to privacy within the Constitution. I believe it was penumbras formed by emanations on Roe v. Wade. Carrie, can you honor the Constitution without being ideological?
Absolutely, and that's what Amy Coney Barrett was talking about. It's not about finding someone who's going to give you a laundry list of preferences you want achieved. Every justice on the Supreme Court agrees that there are times when you have to overturn a law or a ruling that was incorrectly decided. If we didn't have that, we would still have the horrible Dred Scott case here, finding that Black Americans could be slaves.
Don't play games.
It is correct to overturn precedents that are incorrect.
That's a red herring.
Why is that a red herring?
Let me just ask you point blank. Hey, Roe v. Wade, tell me right now on national television, bad decision? Tell me right now. Tell all the pro-choice Republicans, moderate Republicans. Tell me right now on national TV, it's Roe v. Wade,
I'll sit here and say that
Lawrence,
it was. Go ahead. I'll let you answer it yourself.
Lawrence Tribe, President Obama's legal advisor, a Harvard law professor, constitutional law textbook author, he thinks it is not a law that a precedent that is a good quality precedent. But the question here is very different. I don't think this justice is going to be of the vote to overturn Roe versus Wade, because the middle justice, the swing vote, is now Chief Justice John Roberts. I think he is much harder to predict, and I have no idea what he will do in this case.
Leo,
this is really a distraction.
Leo, there's a lot of people in this country that believe Roe v. Wade is terrible and abortion is a sin on this country. There's a lot of people that legitimately hold that policy view. There's also a lot of people, including my professor at Princeton University, Robbie George, who pointed out many times that the decision of Roe v. Wade, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, was judicial activism at its finest.
You know, this debate
respectfully, when Carrie uses Dred Scott as an analogy, she insults the intelligence of every viewer. Now, you know, Pete, since 1973, all the current administration, Republicans and Democrats, legislation has acknowledged Roe v. Wade. And this judge is hell-bent on overturning Roe v. Wade. She should not be nominated.
No, you're making it a single issue. I think the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, religious liberty,
it's a big issue.
Government overreach, the 10th Amendment. Of course it's a big issue, and it's one of the things that could come before the court. Are you saying it's not a legitimate policy position to believe that maybe it could be decided at the state level?
You know, I think all of this...
I'm telling you that this judge should believe in stare decisis. Don't you believe that, Carrie? Can you just say yes or no? It's very simple.
I absolutely believe in stare decisis, but no principles of stare decisis say that every case, once decided, never gets overturned. Zero justices in the Supreme Court believe that. This is all a distraction. These are scare tactics used against Justice O'Connor, Justice Kennedy, Justice Souter. They were saying they would be the vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. Those were the three votes that upheld Roe versus Wade in the Planned Parenthood case. It's a distraction from the real principles we're talking about here, which is this someone who's going to look at the law first and foremost, look at the Constitution first and foremost?
I'll tell you,
Amy Barrett, unlike many people, has written clearly.
One more big comment.
She believes
very
her
important comment. I
religion
read one
should
of her
be
speeches.
separate
I read
from
one of her
that.
speeches, and she said, "I didn't understand this as a lawyer." She told a group of lawyers that we as lawyers have a higher calling to God. Can
Well,
you
I think a
explain
lot
that to
of
me?
us have a
Why
higher
is she
calling
injecting
to God.
religion? I don't know what that
think
means.
that's-
I don't know as a
back
lawyer.
to
I
the
don't know what that
Declaration of
means.
Independence. I think our framers may have
Oh,
said
here we
that
go
too.
again.
She's
Declaration
of
unique, though.
Independence. Here we go
Let me just
again,
say,
back to our
she's unique
founding
that she's written
principles.
that, and she has said specifically, if her moral beliefs conflicted with her role as a judge, she said she would recuse herself. What else can you ask? She says specifically, I'm not
Carrie,
going to substitute
no,
my
I
moral
think
beliefs for the
this
law.
is
The law comes first.
Indicative of the fact these are going to be some confirmation hearings, no matter who is chosen. That'll be must-see TV. A good debate. Carrie, Leo, thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got
My
it.
pleasure.
Well, is the Democratic Party sowing the seeds of its own destruction? We'll explain right after this brief commercial break.